or leverage it in positive ways. So in terms of this morality scale, so to speak, or scale of consciousness, he wants to make it clear that it's not about the petty, little kind of moralistic judgments of right and wrong, but rather the both objective but also personal basis, almost like a moral compass that each of us or as society might have from which to make decisions and evaluations regarding the highest conduct of our lives. So this is on a higher order, higher level perspective about what human life can be and could be and should be. So the key is, he says, how to maintain compassion, particularly in a world, as I introduced the show, with all those depraved activities and difficult things happening. How do we do this in a dark and relative world where everyone thinks he or she is right? And it's that view of rightness that makes fanaticism so dangerous. Now, along the way, Dr. Hawkins learned about the field of applied kinesiology. It developed into behavioral kinesiology and further developed with his input into advanced behavioral kinesiology. Now, I don't know if any of you have been to a chiropractor or certain NLP practitioner. Some types of healing modalities use kinesiology that's also referred to as muscle testing, because it's a study of muscles and their response to stimuli, both positive or true stimuli, which strengthens the muscle response, or negative or untrue stimuli, which weaken the muscle response. It's pretty cool. I'm sure you've seen it where somebody will put out, they'll have you put out your arm and they'll say, you know, in my case, okay, my name is Susan, and they'll press down on my arm and my arm flops right down to my side. If I then hold my arm out and I say, my name is Donna, and they press, I have a strong hold without them pushing or breaking my arm. It just is strong because it is true for me. So this is how they do muscle testing, and they put numbers to it, and you can actually calculate by the kinesthetic response to that stimuli or the questioning. You can narrow down, and that's how he's developed this whole scale of consciousness. So looking into the scale, and I'm going to open the page in the book here, the bottom of the scale, the least powerful, the most depressing and energy lowering emotion you can have is shame. And, you know, think about how you feel when you feel shamed. That's at the scale of 20. Then it moves up to guilt at 30, apathy at 50, grief at 75, fear at 100, desire at 125. Interestingly, anger is at 150. Pride is 175. Courage is 200. Then it moves to neutrality at 250. So being neutral and trusting is actually much higher than any of those other things, even being neutral. Then it moves into willingness, acceptance, reason. Love is at 500, and there are some programs you might have heard around love or at, love or above. That's what they're referring to, this 500 level of consciousness energy. Joy is 540, peace is 600, enlightenment is anywhere from 700 to 1,000. And just to read a little example here, he says, reflection on this map can bring about a profound expansion of one's empathy for life in its variety of expressions. If we examine ostensibly less virtuous emotional attitudes, we realize they're neither good nor bad. Moralistic judgments are merely a function of the viewpoint from which they proceed. We see, for instance, that if a person is in grief, which calibrates at the low energy level of 75, they'll be in a much better condition if they rise to anger from grief, which calibrates at 150. Anger itself is a destructive emotion. It's still a low state of consciousness, but as social history shows, apathy can imprison entire subcultures as well as individuals. If the hopeless can come to want something better, because desire is ranked at 125, and then use the energy of anger at 150 to develop pride at 175, they may then be able to take the step to courage, which calibrates at 200, and proceed to improve their individual and collective conditions. And interestingly, he says that over the years, until about the 1980s, so this is very, very recent, the number plateaued around 190. And there was a prevalence of lies as social tender, lack of consensus about individual and collective responsibility. So, wow, what is it about the 1980s? And that jumped it up to 207. Well, if you think about it, it was the onslaught of social media and sharing of information on one level. But at the same time, people kept resorting to force. Now, force is experienced through the senses and always moves against something. So he's promoting not force, but power, because power can be recognized only through inner awareness, which arises from meaning, motive, and principle. It appeals to the noble, while force appeals to the crass sensibilities of humans and humanity. So what we want to be doing is advancing society and finding resolution to intractable world problems by elevating ourselves on this energetic consciousness scale. Now, he says simply by reading his book, it's a good sales technique, you should advance 35 points in terms of your own personal energetic or consciousness scale, when people who live a normal life and develop and grow without having access to this kind of information in a normal lifetime would raise 5 points. So if you can raise 35 points in your enlightenment scale of consciousness, that would be pretty cool. And the more everyone on an individual level raises their or our consciousness, of course, it affects the whole planet. So what we want to do is become more conscious, because it's a gift to the universe. We want to avoid hanging out or cultivating negative attractor fields, because this becomes the environment where things happen through force. And force, as I just mentioned earlier, is a crass energy. It's the lower level sensibilities. Rather, you want to either be in or create a positive attractor field, because this is the area in which power takes place and appeals to the higher order and moralistic side of human nature. So just to wrap up here, I will read the back description of Dr. Hawkins, and the book is again, Power versus Force, The Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior. So Dr. David Hawkins is a renowned lecturer and expert on mental processes whose national TV appearances include many. He's a lifetime member of the American Psychiatric Association, begun in 1952. He's the author of numerous scientific papers and early videotapes, and currently is director of the Institute for Advanced Theoretical Research. So one of the ways of using this advanced behavioral kinesiology is simply to ask a question of yourself. And you can yourself become like a human pendulum. You stand with your feet at shoulder length apart. Like I said, you can, if you have someone with you, they can press on your arm answering yes or no. And a weak signal will be the no, and a strong signal will be the yes. But you can also do it yourself standing, where yes, ask yourself which direction is yes, and then your body will, let's say, sway backwards and forwards. And then you confirm that therefore then no will be sideways. Yes, that's true. Okay. And so then ask yourself a question. Pick up a bottle of vitamins in the grocery store or the health food store before you spend all that money, and say, is this good for my body? And hold it and see which way your body sways. If it's forward and back, the answer is yes. Your body, this positive attractor field, has a way of giving you the answers you need. It may be no. Before you go on a date with someone, you could ask, is this a person a good person to have in my life? Is it yes or no? And so on and so forth. Should I choose this job or that one? You wouldn't ask it that way. You'd say, should I choose this job? Should I choose that job? And your body and the energetic field around you will respond and put you in a position of power, and so that you can express much more of your nobility. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a pretty interesting book. It's very dense, very rich and meaningful. The Power versus Force, the Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior. So thanks for joining me today. And do tune in to the archives on SOBradionetwork.com of Living Legacy Leadership and my business site of GameChangerThinking.com. And do remember that the life you live is the legacy you leave. Bye-bye now.